Awesome. Okay, cool. So today, another Wednesday, Lunch and Learn. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name is CJ Finley, founder of Thrive on Life. For those that might be seeing this, I've never seen our Lunch and Learns before, but ultimately, at the end of the day, what we created this for is to build a community around people that are trying to just continuously get better. I'm super passionate about education reform and helping to just get free education out there, as well as provide people the ability to put their own brands, their names, whatever they're working on out into the world in a comfortable space. So if you'd like to speak and you're watching this and it's one of those things that you wanted to check off, you might be afraid to, it might be uncomfortable, but you have something that you want to share with the world. This is the place to do it because we're opening it up to an inclusive community that's not going to basically hate on you for what you're doing. We're going to try and help you in any way that we can. So that's what we are all about here at Thrive. We strive together, thrive together. And I'm super excited for today's talk with Ellie Rome. Health is a big issue nowadays, obviously with COVID and everything going on. And the holidays are coming up, which is a huge time for eating, drinking, and doing all the fun things. But going into the new year, we always have that feeling of, oh, like I need to hit the gym, or I need to watch what I eat, or I need to do these different things. And she's going to clarify a lot of that for us. So without further ado, thank you so much, Ellie, for being here. And I'm really looking forward to what you have in store for us. So I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, CJ. And thank you for letting me come and speak. I'm so excited to speak to this because I know I used to have a lot of issues with this. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. And for this talk, if any of y'all logging on have questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and speak. And same with you, CJ, if you want to dig deeper into any of these topics, I would love to dive deep into any of this stuff. So yeah, with that, first of all, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, cool.
Looks great.
Great. All right. Well, just really quick, a little bit about me. My name's Ellie. I am a health and emotional eating coach. I was a former chemical engineer, but I switched careers after having a lifetime of sugar addiction, binge eating, compulsive eating. I had a really toxic relationship with food, and I ended up gaining like 30 pounds in college, tried to starve myself, tried to purge unsuccessfully, and just kind of went down the rabbit hole of yo-yo dieting and felt a lot of shame in my body, how I showed up in the world. I was exhausted all the time. And then I ended up developing an autoimmune thyroid condition. I was losing hair, had horrible ADHD, thought I was broken basically, and went to a bunch of doctors, all of whom just kind of tried to prescribe me different things. I went to 6 different doctors, and it wasn't until I went to a holistic practitioner, who was the only one that asked me what I was eating, was I starting to be able to heal. And so I switched my diet. I found out a bunch of food sensitivities and a bunch of stuff that I was eating that I thought was healthy, that in reality was breaking my body down. And within like 30 days, my world changed when I changed my nutrition. So I became super passionate about this and then just kind of kept going, ended up leaving my engineering job to do coaching full time. So I've coached for 4 years. And yeah, this is why I'm here today. I want to help you achieve optimal performance and health for the holidays. So for the holidays, this is one of the most difficult times of year. A lot of us have way more stress. There's so much more temptation to eat all the things. And there's kind of a mentality around the holidays. Have any of you felt this, of just kind of like letting go off the rails and then just waiting until January 1 to take back control?
Yup.
Yes.
Drinking has always been the problem.
Yes, thank you. And drinking is huge. And I think a lot of that has to do you think like socially drinking, or do you think drinking like out of stress? What would you say for yourself?
I think in the past it's been both. Just in a social atmosphere where there's free alcohol, or you're stressed out because, again, when you're coming down to the wire at the end of the year, you're looking at tax seasons coming up, just a bunch of different business reasons, and also the family. You're around family, so tensions can be high. So it's always the drinking I found for myself. So this is hitting home.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. And I think one of the biggest things around eating in the holidays and drinking in the holidays is learning how to manage stress. So often we are managing stress through food and alcohol and not having proper coping mechanisms to be able to handle those things. And so it can kind of be just like a knee-jerk reaction, feeling discomfort in your body, feeling stressed out, and then reaching towards alcohol or food to satiate that. So it's starting to bring awareness to those triggers. And there's so many tools, and we're going to talk about this today, of finding new coping mechanisms, new tools in your toolkit that you can reach for versus food or versus alcohol. And then another thing with alcohol during the holidays is it doesn't mean you can't not to drink or anything like that, but it's choosing mindfully what you are drinking and then noticing if that, getting to a certain point of drinking, does that lower your inhibitions, and then you end up binging on a bunch of food. So I know that drinking can be a huge trigger for eating poorly, making poor food decisions. So we're going to talk about that too. But to begin, I just want to start off with getting the mentality right for the holidays, so that this is not just about calories. This is not just about wanting to lose weight or maintain weight, which is an awesome bonus, but food is the way that you show up in the world. So every single bite you take is either promoting your best self or taking that away. And so starting with setting intentions for your holiday of how do you want to show up? What is the purpose of the holidays? So if we can stop kind of putting so much emphasis on food and thinking about that, how do you want to show up with your family? Is the holidays about connection, about being with your friends and family and having the best time, being present? And then asking yourself if you're eating a bunch of food that tears you down or makes you feel bad, how are you showing up then? Are you bloated and overstuffed and then you just want to go to bed and your sister wants to hang out with you and you're just no, I cannot. And so getting into that mentality of it's not I can't eat this or I shouldn't eat this. It's just how is this food going to affect my body? If I eat this, am I showing up as my best me? And starting to shift that mentality of, again, that, getting rid of the I can't haves or I shouldn't haves, and start saying what do I want for myself? How do I want to feel? How do I want to show up? So for you guys, or CJ or anyone on, your intention for the holidays, how do you want to show up for the next 2 months?
Jake, I'm calling on you. Bypassing.
I would say definitely just being as present as I can. I think there's been so much. CJ, can you mute real quick? There's been so much just going on this year, and I think there's been a lot of noise. And I think if we can really just this holiday season, just to close this year out, try to clear up as much of that noise as we can and just really be here, just be present. I think that's gonna propel us into next year so much stronger and better, and leaving behind everything from this year and the stresses and the confusion and whatnot from this year. And I think just really showing up as present as possible and as clear as possible.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Jake. And do you feel when you are making healthy choices for your body, whether it's movement, whether it's breath work, whether it's what you're putting in your body, do you feel that enables you to have more presence and clarity?
100%. Yeah.
Yes, this is awesome. So for anyone listening if y'all want, set your goal, take a moment and set some intentions of what would the next 60 days or November, December, how do you want to show up? What do you want to see from yourself? How do you want to feel? And realizing that every choice you have is a moment, or every moment you have is a new chance for you to show up in that way or to show up for that self. And I'm sure all of you have read Atomic Habits. I know that's one of CJ's favorite books too. He talks about casting votes. Am I casting votes for my best self, for my most present self, or is this a vote for numbing out, for my self on the couch, that version of me? And releasing the judgment around it and just being an objective third party. Do I want this? And maybe sometimes, yes, maybe it's a worth it thing. And it's okay, I'm going to do this. But realizing that the next moment you can show up for that higher self. And also around food, realizing that when it comes to stress and when it comes to pleasure and feeling good in our bodies, our 90% of our serotonin is based in our gut. And so we want to optimize our gut health so that we can, again, show up in the world as our best selves and feel good, feel positive, be loving, and get out of depressive states. As I mentioned, had so much ADHD, and there's so many positive things about ADHD, but when I was eating foods that were causing me brain fog and causing me basically upping the kind of downsides of ADHD, where I couldn't concentrate and I was all over the place, and food just made that so much worse. So to be able to thrive if you do have ADHD or any of those tendencies, by fueling your body in the way it's meant to be fueled, and we're going to talk about that. And then lastly, just realizing that there's to kind of release restriction around yourself, and as I mentioned, the I can't haves, and realize that everything that you're saying no to means you're saying yes to something else. So by saying no to some like store-bought cookies that are randomly on the counter, like, what are you yesing? What am I yesing? I'm yesing feeling good. I'm yesing that future self. All right. So the main goal for this holiday season, to feel on your A game and to stay in high performance, is really focusing on what you're putting in your body. And so our main goals would be to basically balance your blood sugar and reduce inflammation. And so doing those two things, you're going to feel so much better. Or if you're already doing those things, just keep those habits up. So by balancing your blood sugar, we start with being really mindful of how much sugar and excess carbs we're intaking. And the next thing to reduce inflammation is going to be to remove processed vegetable oils as much as you can. And I'll go into this more. And then really figuring out your specific food sensitivities for your body, because there may be things that you are eating that you think are super healthy, but in reality are wreaking havoc on your gut, maybe causing you a bunch of brain fog and draining your energy, and so that you're not able to show up as your optimal self.
Ellie, I have two questions. One,
Okay.
have you switched your slides? Because it's not showing, it's still showing the main slide. And I was like, I caught on to it like a slide ago, but I was interested in why Zoom is not.
Let me try.
Try again.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought in the last one, I was like, this seems weird. Like, it seems like she's talking about a slide, a new picture or something, and we weren't seeing it. But the second question is, you mentioned food intolerances and stuff like that. It's something I've struggled with over the course of my entire life. And my buddy Jeff, who's on here too, him and I talk about this all the time. How would you go about solving some of those intolerances, like in your past? And then also, what would you recommend somebody out there right now who might want to go get checked out? What would you recommend to do for that?
Absolutely. Such a good question. So there are some common problematic foods that you basically do elimination protocols. And I think about these as experiments because we're all different, and it's going to take time for every single person to just figure out what works for you and what doesn't. So let me pull up this slide because that'll be helpful. You can tell me if it works. Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time. Just hoping it works this time.
I know if not, it's all right. We'll be good without. But
okay, so we see.
You see, like my math.
Yeah, and I can see the other slides now. There we go. Okay.
Okay, so I'll just.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, we were missing out. This looks so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so you're welcome. So the main thing with food sensitivities is basically when you're eating something that's causing an inflammation in the body, inflammation in the gut, that inflammation goes everywhere. So it may not be that you necessarily have like IBS or gut issues. It could be a thyroid issue, eczema, rosacea, acne. Like, it just manifests in so many different ways for different people, but it all comes back to the gut, and it all comes back to a lot of these common trigger foods. And so for many people, the top ones are gluten, grains, dairy, soy, legumes. Those are like a top 5 really big trigger foods for people, gluten being the main one. And a lot of times if you're eating gluten, what it does in the gut is basically you've got this gut lining, 1 cell thick, and each of those cells has a junction between them. And gluten produces when you eat gluten, it produces a protein called zonulin, which opens up those gut junctions and allows food particles or toxins or other things to enter the bloodstream. And then your immune system in your bloodstream is like, what is this foreign invader? And it attacks and it elicits a huge immune response. And when that happens, it's, again, that information is going throughout the body because it's in the bloodstream, and it can cause all sorts of issues. And so a lot of which is basically your body's on fire all the time, and your immune system's having to fight these fires. So all that energy that could be going to your brain for thinking, could be going to your muscles for movement and energy, and towards your projects that you love, it's being sucked out trying to fight these fires from these foods. And so often if you are gluten intolerant or gluten sensitive and you're eating a bunch of gluten, you have a leaky gut, then other foods you can start reacting to because they start slipping into the bloodstream and your body's like, what is this? And so sometimes you've got to get a bunch of these things out, allow the gut to heal, and then you can reintroduce some of the other foods, and maybe you tolerate a small amount. Maybe you tolerate certain types. So like some people will introduce dairy and they have a lot of issues, but then they just try goat's milk dairy or sheep's milk dairy and they can tolerate it because there's a protein in dairy called casein protein, but there's a different type between cow's milk and sheep's milk. So it's very much an experiment. But what I tell people to start off with is doing an elimination where you get out a bunch of the problematic foods that you may be, because you may be so inflamed that you're just reacting to everything. And so a paleo, like I wrote here in this slide, a really good starting framework can be a paleo type diet, a Whole30, if y'all are familiar with that. It's basically eating real food, meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, fruit, nuts, seeds. Starting with that, getting out a lot of sugar, those processed oils, getting out gluten, grains, dairy, soy, legumes, doing that for X amount of time, seeing how you feel. You may need to do longer than 30 days. Or I lead these group resets quarterly, 21-day resets. So we do 21 days of these eliminations. But sometimes you want to go longer because it does take the time for the gut to heal. And then once you get to a point, maybe your symptoms clear up, you can start reintroducing things and see, you may eat some dairy and then you're so bloated. Like 80% of the people I work with, they'll put dairy back in and they have horrible gut issues, gas, acne breakouts. And so then you get to see like, okay, now I know what dairy does to me. And then I can consciously make a choice. Like, do I really want this queso? I'm going to be in the bathroom for 3 hours if I eat this. Like, is it worth it? Maybe the queso is really worth it, but it's just like, you get to actually make that choice because you're more in control. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I did want to mention the brain inflammation because this is about optimizing, and what happens in the brain is very similar to what's happening in the gut. So you basically have a brain barrier, and when you're eating things like gluten, if you're sensitive, which many of us are, your brain does not want that barrier getting broken. It's so much more hypervigilant. So you've got these immune cells called glial cells in your brain. They're like bazookas, and they will, like, you eat something that's going to cause basically an immune reaction, those glial cells are going to fire. And what happens is that causes a lot of collateral damage to nerve tissue. And that's why a lot of people experience brain fog after they eat. And so much of like having higher cognitive performance is knowing what your food sensitivities are. So this is way more than just digestive upset even. It's very much related to your neurochemistry. All right. So really quick, I want to go back to the sugar and the processed oils, because this is what a lot of the holiday foods are loaded with. And when you want to be on your A game, stable blood sugar is essential. This is going to give you the stable energy throughout the day, not have the energy crashes. And when you are stable with your blood sugar, you crave way less sugar. So when we eat things that are high carb, so this doesn't just mean cake and candy. This means whole wheat pasta, bread, cereal, breakfast cereal, things that just you eat and break down in the body like sugar. Your blood sugar spikes up to the top of a roller coaster, and then insulin comes out. Insulin's our fat storage hormone. It comes out, brings the blood sugar back down to balance, and puts that sugar into our muscles, our fat, and our brain and our liver. But the liver, muscles, and brain are very limited storage. So everything else is being stored as fat. And when you're at the top of that roller coaster and then insulin brings it way down to the bottom of the roller coaster, you experience a sugar crash. So have any of y'all ever experienced that? And what do you feel at the bottom of a sugar crash? Anyone? Anyone?
Terrible.
Yeah, terrible. Maybe. And what do you crave more of?
Sugar.
Yes, sugar. And eat more sugar or carbs, and it spikes us back up. And then we're on this roller coaster all day long. So that massively impacts your mood. If any moms or parents are listening, this often impacts kids and their ability to just basically be well behaved. I have a lot of parents I work with, their kids get off refined sugar and their behavior gets so much better. And it's same for us, same for adults. Just our mood stability, our ability to not be irritated and have patience with people is so affected on our blood sugar.
I have a question about sugar. So obviously there's a ton of different types of sugars. And for somebody that's looking to understand more about, like when you say cut sugar, do you recommend cutting cold turkey? Do you recommend like looking into, is there a quote unquote, I don't like the word healthier, but is there a better sugar to be kind of like utilizing than a different type of sugar?
Yeah, this is a really great question. So it very much depends on you and where you're at in your health journey. We all have a different tolerance to sugar and different types of sugar. So if you're super active, super insulin sensitive, like you can handle, you have tons of muscle that's burning that sugar, you can handle a lot more. Your threshold's better. Someone who's insulin resistant with diabetes, like they may need to be way down. And even things like honey or coconut sugar may just be too much for their body to handle. So as far as forms of sugar, if you are metabolically healthy and want to have some sugar once in a while, better forms that are lower glycemic, which means they won't have such a huge impact on your blood sugar, would be things like using real forms, honey, maple syrup, coconut sugar. You can do some natural sweeteners like stevia, erythritol, allulose, monk fruit sweetener. Those are all better, especially those natural sugars for people who are diabetic or insulin resistant or who really want to drop weight. So keeping your blood sugar low is going to be essential for losing fat. But mindful amounts of honey and maple syrup and coconut sugar would be definitely a better bet than white refined sugar.
Awesome.
But all of that is still sugar. Yeah, you're welcome. All of that is still sugar. So it's definitely not like, oh, it's honey, so it's a free for all. So it's just still being mindful of how much you're eating. And this is the first step, you know, for me, I was a sugar addict. So it was, and I work with people that are in both camps. Some people can moderate and some people and wean off and be really mindful when they eat something. And then people like me, I had a little bit and it's like the dragon goes off in my mind and then I'm craving sugar for days. And so it was just like, I realized it wasn't worth having a little bit because then I just set off these cravings. And it's not like an I can't have, it's just like, man, I don't want to be battling these cravings for 3 days when that energy could be going towards my projects, towards my clients, towards like things that I want it to go towards, not me thinking about food all the time. So it's kind of figuring out what you do better with, and you can do a progressive drop. So first step I always tell people is just become aware. How much sugar are you eating each day? Start checking your labels because companies are super sneaky and there's over 52 different names for sugar and it's scattered throughout the label and confusing terms. And a lot of times people don't realize how much sugar they're actually taking in or carbs they're actually eating. So that's first step. Things like cauliflower pizza. It's like, oh, this is healthy, but in reality, it's like majority brown rice and it's just launching their blood sugar. They might as well eat a regular pizza. So it's becoming really clear on that. And then focusing on what to add in. So like to stabilize your blood sugar, if you are eating a bunch of carbs, to add in fiber to help slow that blood sugar absorption down so you don't get such a huge spike, and adding in protein. So pairing, you know, if you're eating a bunch of, like you decide to have a cupcake, maybe pair it with some form of protein, whether it's nuts or some chicken or something that's going to slow that blood sugar down. And then for the next part of this is seed oil. So sugar gets demonized. Most of us know like sugar isn't the best thing for us, but there's been so much misinformation around fat and the demonization of saturated fat or animal fats, or even coconut oil. Now that's kind of come to the surface, but that those are the fats we want to be eating and avoiding these industrial seed oils, which are basically toxic to the body. They're damaged fats. And the thing about fats is all of our cells have cell membranes that are made of majority of the fatty acids that we consume. So we don't want to be building our cells with oxidized fats. And most of our brain, I think like 60% of our brain is fat. So we need fat, but we want it to be the good, healthy fat so that we can thrive. So long story short, industrial seed oils, things like to avoid would be canola oil, soybean oil, vegetable oils, cottonseed oil. I've listed them here. Margarine, plant-based butter, which may sound super healthy, but it's normally just soybean oil. And being mindful of that, because it's in a lot of baked goods, it's in a lot of packaged goods, packaged products, even things like nuts. You think you're just buying a bag of almonds and they're covered in soybean oil. So these are essential. Like at least when we eat sugar and carbs, we can you can run before, like burn through that eventually. But these oils, like they just have to get incorporated into your body. You don't want them to be these damaged oxidized fats. They produce a lot of inflammation and produce insulin resistance, which can lead to diabetes and Alzheimer's and things like that. So what to eat would be things, healthy fats, avocados, coconut, olive oil, olives, ghee, or if you tolerate butter, grass-fed butter, pasture-raised animal fats, wild-caught fatty fish, nuts and seeds, basically saturated and monounsaturated fats. Any questions around that?
So we have a question. So it's hard to see the chat when you're sharing, but Jasmine asked what amount of sugar is okay. And then she's basically alluding to what amount of smoothies from Juiceland is okay.
This is a really good question. Okay. The American Heart Association recommends 25 grams, less than 25 grams of sugar for a woman a day. This is added sugar. I would say to begin, like less than 25 ideally, and then total sugars would definitely be less than 50 grams. But yeah, shoot for less than 25. And the thing with fruit smoothies, like this is something that often trips people up, is that when you juice a smoothie, you're stripping out all the fiber, or when you're getting a juice, you're stripping out all the fiber and leaving the sugar, concentrating it. And so those Juiceland smoothies may have a lot of sugar. So I would go on the website and get their nutrition facts and just look at the ones that maybe have lower glycemic fruit, things like blueberries and other berries and like citrus fruits, and maybe just use half a banana if you're making a smoothie, and just being mindful of how much is actually going in there. Because you can smoothie down a ton of sugar into a smoothie. But that was an awesome question. And any fat questions? We good? And I do.
I do have a fat question. That sounds funny. But what is the latest research on like saturated versus monounsaturated? Because I haven't, to be honest, I haven't looked at that in probably the past year or two, and obviously it did get a bad rap. But why is it starting to make a comeback? And I know you do a lot of carnivore stuff, and why you're way more well-versed in it than I am. Why would it be okay? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I think a lot of people out there, again, no matter how much, and this is when I worked when I was training, no matter how much I would say fat is okay, they still were resistant. So I'd love to hear kind of like your understanding of what's the latest and greatest on fats and why they aren't as bad as people were making them out to be.
Yeah, such a great question. And this is a very controversial topic. So this is my take from it, from like the last year of I guess like the most recent research that's been out. But basically, yeah, fat is been deemed this the culprit of why we have heart disease, why we have that cholesterol is the cause of heart disease, and that fat's driving this. And it's kind of a lot been debunked recently. In the past 10 years, it's really been been flipped on its head. In the 1970s, it was deemed that basically fat was the culprit when heart disease was on the rise. And so they started adding sugar into everything to get food to taste good. And then once that kind of completely backfired on our health, as we see with the increase of diabetes, obesity. But the other thing that increased was also the use of these industrial seed oils, these polyunsaturated fats. I still find diagrams online that say, eat the polyunsaturated fats. And if you can see, they basically there's a really good book called The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. She's got great YouTube videos also on all of this. Like, so much of it is just like big business wanting to sell these seed oils because they can produce them. They had like all this excess cottonseed oil that they didn't know what to do with. It was not palatable. So they do all these processes to it to make it palatable and stick it in our food and say that it's healthier. And so a lot of it was driven by big business and these companies. And so if you think back, for thousands and thousands of years, we've eaten animal foods. We've lived on saturated fat. And these fats are basically hydrocarbon chains. So a polyunsaturated fat has 2 double bonds in it. Basically looks like it's like 2 kinks, which means those double bonds, they're not saturated with hydrogen. So they're easily broken and more easily oxidized in the body, causing inflammation. And so a lot of these are even on the shelf, like especially at high temperatures, are very damaged fats, very oxidized, ready to basically produce that inflammation in your body, if that makes sense. And so a monounsaturated fat only has 1 double bond. A saturated fat has no double bonds. And so it's a lot more stable. And that's why it's solid at room temperature. And they're a lot better cooking fats. So if you want to cook something at high heats, to use a saturated fat like beef tallow, ghee, coconut and avocado oil are better because they are more like coconut oil is more monounsaturated fat, or red palm oil from a sustainably raised source. But I don't know if I'm answering your question, CJ.
That was an awesome answer. Yeah, I'm gonna have to re-listen to it and obviously dig through it a little bit. But I love the one big business, which, so excuse my friends, fucks up a lot of things in our world, is one of the problems. But then also like the misunderstanding of like mono versus poly versus saturated, and like how that affects the different bonds in your body. So I followed along that. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, I have a question actually about, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So saturated fat is not bad. Is that the consensus? I just like, I don't know why every time I see saturated fat, I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible for you. But like, it's not bad.
Correct.
Okay.
And you're not the only one in that boat. Like, that is what has been preached at, and it's been told to be the cause of heart disease, but it's been found like that is not the case.
Okay. And is there like a certain, okay, I guess it depends on your diet, I guess. I don't know why. So like, I don't even know what the question I'm trying to ask is now, but so is there an amount of like saturated fat that's like a normal number? I guess it's different obviously for every person and whatever diet that you're doing, but yeah, I know I've been eating like grass-fed beef recently, like grass-fed beef patties, and it's got like 17 grams of saturated fat per patty. And I'm like, is that good or is that bad? Am I going to get fat? I don't know. Like what? I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, great question, Jasmine. And it definitely depends on the person, I would say, and what you tolerate well and what you feel like, how like you feel in your body when you eat these things. I think the amount of fat the amount of total fat like depends on what like macro ratio you want to go on. If you're doing like a lower carb diet, you're gonna need more fat because those are our energy fuel sources. Carbs are fat. So if a lot of people, that's why they're hungry all the time when they go low carb, because they're not eating enough fat and then they're not having the energy or satiation signals. But eating healthy fats like the avocados, olives, coconut oil, the grass-fed fats. As far as a number to give you, it's definitely dependent on your weight and your goals and your body.
Yeah.
So I don't want to throw a random number out.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Also, is the trans fat the one that's bad? Is there any fat that's bad? Like, is the trans fat the bad one?
Yes, trans fats, and then eating excess polyunsaturated fats, like from these industrial feed oils.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So those are the ones that are not that great for you.
Right. I would avoid.
And then the trans fat is not that great for you either.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I think yeah, go ahead.
Jasmine, an easy way to think about it is because like over the years, because of celiac disease, I've cut out a lot of carbs and had to up my fats, is I look for a distribution of total macros. So if you're way high in fat and low in protein and low in carb, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best thing for your body. So like what I've kind of like landed on is what is the right number of fat for my body within ratio of carb to protein. So like when you're going throughout the day, don't just look at your fats, look at like if you're high in fat and high in fiber as well, and then high in protein, that's a good thing. But if you're just super high in fat, low in protein, low in carb, then it's probably one, your body's going to react and you're probably not going to feel well. And I don't mean to overtake you, Ellie. I'm just coming from my personal experience of upping my fats. But what I realize is like I have a threshold of the amount of fat that I can eat. And as long as I keep my proteins and my carbs in line with that ratio, I feel great. But if I let the ratio of fats go too high and my proteins go too low and my carbs go too low, I still don't feel that great, no matter if it's the good fat or the bad fat, because I only eat the fats on the right side of this. And I've noticed that I can go too high in that range. So even if you have like the grass-fed burgers and it's 17 grams and maybe you have 2 of those, look more into the ratio of total calories and what you're consuming that day and how much protein is it with it, how much fiber is with it, and then what is your carb distribution with that as well. And that's going to be a better tell than like I'm eating too much fat or not enough fat. Your body will tell you, like, long story short, in your digestion, you'll know if you're eating too much fat. Your body will just tell you that. And you just need to up your ratios of other things.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, eating has always been difficult for me because I never know like I know that I always have issues with my stomach. So I'm always trying to figure out like, okay, well, what the hell is it that's going to make my stomach just stop being annoying? And then also, since I have a lot of on the go, like, you know, I'll be shooting videos on the go and I never know what to bring with me or how to eat right, because sometimes I don't have access to like a microwave and I'm on a shoot. So yeah, it gets really annoying to try to figure out what to eat and how to eat right, even when I am like out and I don't have access to, like, even if I did bring my own food, it's like, well, I can't microwave it. So
you're hitting the nail on the head. And that's one of the reasons that I had to up my fats was, another long story short, back in the day, I would eat a lot of red meat, sauce, and carbs, pasta. Mm-hmm. And I always thought it was the meat, the saturated fat, that was causing my issues. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I became celiac, I'd cut out the pasta and I could eat the meat. And I was like, wow, I feel great. Like I'm fine. And then I started upping fats and seeing like how I felt on fats versus carbs. And what you'll realize is you'll be able to fast a lot longer, just like Ellie was talking, if you eat fat. So one of the things, even for the plane ride I'm about to get on, is I have a packet of almond butter and cashew butter. So what I'll do is I'll eat that fat prior to, say, going on a plane ride, and then I'll just fast that whole plane ride because I'm going to be sitting. So that fat is going to be a slow burn over the course of that day, and I'll be satiated. But if you eat the carb and it spikes your insulin, just like Ellie was talking about, you're going to be hungry again during that trip or during, like, for you, working. And you don't need a microwave for a lot of the fats that you'll see, like, you're not going to need a microwave. So the butter, the nut butters, things like that, avocados. I've literally, when I go on trips, I'll just go to a Whole Foods and buy an avocado. And then a cool thing that you can do with it is the everything bagel seasoning you can put in the avocado. It tastes great, but that one avocado is probably going to satiate you for like 4 to 6 hours, compared to if you eat a sandwich. Like I used to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or tuna sandwiches. I would eat that, and it seemed like even within an hour I'd be hungry again, and that's because of the sugars and the carbohydrates. That's just how your body responds. But the fat is more of a slow burn, the way that your body handles it. So I've noticed that, again, just like Ellie, you've been preaching, try it on your own. I'm only speaking to some of the things that I've dealt with over the years, and upping my fats has been a game changer. And then also I see macadamia nuts down there, like the actual nuts or seeds, and then nut butters have changed my life when I'm on the go, because all I need, or a banana and nut butter, that I'm telling you, like you could probably last off of that for 8 hours if you do it the right way. And then that way you're not stressed in a stressed environment. Because I think a lot of things, and Ellie, you might be able to attest to this and speak to this, a lot of my stomach issues came because I was stressed about, oh my God, there's not going to be a microwave, or there's not going to be this. What am I going to eat? Just thinking about what I was going to eat was stressing me out and causes a stomach issue, rather than being like, oh, I'm going to eat this banana with almond butter and I'm going to be good for 6 to 8 hours. Like I'm not going to need anything. So I'm just going to be fine. I'm just going to drink a bunch of water. So I hope that was helpful, but I feel your pain.
No, yeah, it's helpful. I think the other bigger issue that I have is like not even really with just eating, but it's literally just like planning that I need to eat something good. And then I just am very horrible at like, okay, I know I'm going to need to bring this, or I'm going to need to plan that I need to eat this. And it's like, and then I get home and I don't want to cook anything because I'm
so
like,
you're human?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just like, this is annoying. Like sometimes eating is just annoying. But yeah, I mean, you answered my questions about the fats, which was good. Cause yeah, I've been eating a lot of the grass-fed beef patties lately. And I was like, is this good for me? I don't know. I feel like everyone's always demonized eating like red meat and burgers. And it's like, I just eat like a burger patty with like eggs and gluten-free toast. And that seemed to serve me well. But then I like always second guess myself. I'm like, whoa, what if it's just not good for me? Cause the burger, when I cook it, I'm like, oh, it seems pretty like fatty and like, I don't know, but it's like one of those organic grass-fed, like leaner burgers, but it still seems like, oh, is this too greasy? Like, is it bad for me? I don't know. But yeah.
I'll throw it back to you,
I
Ellie.
think that's
Sorry
great.
for taking the comment.
I think it's okay. I think that's great that you're eating the grass-fed burger as if you're feeling well with it. And sometimes when you are increasing your fat, it takes the body time to adjust, because it takes extra lipase, which is one of our digestive enzymes, to help break down that fat if your gallbladder hasn't been had to do without as much work. So sometimes things like digestive enzymes can help. Like Bioptimizers has one called Masszymes that I love. Or it's just kind of like gradually increasing it, let your body catch up, and it'll let you know if you're eating too much. And then also around like I love what you're saying around like needing snacks for the go. So I think CJ's were awesome recommendations. And then things like jerky are so easy, quick, and they'll actually satiate you, like with good protein and some fat.
What kind of jerky is there like better jerky than other,
Yeah.
Yeah, like where do you get your jerky from? Is there a good place I should get some? Because I like beef, or I think I like turkey jerky better than beef jerky, but yeah, I don't know if there's a good brand that you like.
Yeah, Epic bars are amazing.
Epic bars.
Yeah, Epic bars for sure. And Chompstick and Wild Zora bars are all 3 that I really like.
Cool. All right. Well, sorry to take up most of the conversation. Anyways, you can continue.
No, those are great. Yeah. I'm sure other people have the same questions, so this is awesome. And yeah, okay. So we already talked about the food sensitivity. So the 3 things, I think, just to recap, when you're focusing on what to eat, limit your sugar and excess carbs. Just be really mindful of how much you're consuming. Ditch the processed seed oils if possible, and eat healthy fats. And then start maybe doing an elimination experiment, getting out the gluten, grains, dairy, soy, legumes for X period of time. See how you feel, and then start reintroducing. And maybe you reintroduce, and that's like really learn about yourself, and then you can make conscious choice. And focusing on this can be like, oh, I've got to cut out all this stuff. So just reminding yourself to like focus on what you get to eat. There's so many amazing foods that you'll get to eat on your plate, and just start focusing on those. So whether it is like this picture I have of these short ribs with like cauliflower mashed potatoes and bacon wrapped asparagus, and if you like sauteed greens and salads and dark chocolate, like there's so many things that you can eat, and there's so many companies now that make awesome, basically up-leveled products that are just so much better and that you don't have to feel deprived. And so that's the next kind of mantra I want to give you for the holidays, is to kind of get out of the all or none mentality. Like, oh, I can't eat perfect, so why bother? And think of food choices on a spectrum. So if your default mode was to reach for French fries and a shake at McDonald's, like maybe you go to McDonald's and you get the burger without the bun, or you eat half the fries this time and then no fries the next time, and just start like upping the scale and think of it on that spectrum. How can I up level this choice? And then that's what really helps during the holidays, is that so many of the foods that maybe the staple foods, whether it's pumpkin pie or stuffing or just certain foods that are filled with a bunch of low energy ingredients, you can make simple swaps. Swap out the white flour for almond flour, coconut flour. Swap out, like if you're using white flour in gravy, can you use arrowroot flour instead, or tapioca flour? And just swapping out the oils. Instead of using soybean oil in a recipe, use coconut oil. And so all those little shifts, instead of white sugar, you use maple syrup or smaller amounts of honey or erythritol or something, so that your blood sugar doesn't spike. And I posted this is a pumpkin pie ingredient list from Walmart, and it's just filled with so much garbage. And so to just start being aware of, like, this is what I'm putting in my body. My body is so much more worthy of good quality ingredients versus corn syrup, soybean oil, canola oil, enriched flour, things like that. And you can use search terms. So there's literally swaps for everything. Use search terms like I mentioned, like paleo pumpkin pie or Whole30 stuffing, things like that. And you can make so many awesome recipes that can be really easy and taste like people wouldn't even know that they were paleo. And now I want to give you some tips for big holiday meals. So focusing on setting your day up for, not like coming back to that intention of how do you want to feel on this day, wanting to feel really good in your body. So starting the day off with movement, with like exercise, getting your body in a metabolic state that's ready to burn food if you are going to be eating more on this day, and that's okay. And then focusing on filling your plate with the real foods. So where's your meat, where's your fiber, where's your healthy fat, kind of like a checklist. And then having the carby stuff after, or just having, mindful amounts of it. And then what I like to think about is like releasing the cheat day kind of mentality, where it's like, oh, well, today is Thanksgiving, so it's going to be an all out binge and I'm going to eat everything. And it's realizing that, like, you can have whatever you want, but asking yourself, how do you want to feel? And then choosing the worth it foods. So maybe your grandma makes apple pie that you love and you want some of it. Like, amazing, have that. Sit down, slow down, eat it with presence and mindfulness. But it doesn't mean you have to like eat that and then also the store-bought cookies that are sitting on the counter, and like the random jelly beans, or like someone brings some Jello thing with whipped cream on top that you don't even really like, but you eat it just because you're like, screw it, and not thinking. And so planning out your indulgences, like, what are your worth it foods? What can you really look forward to eating? And that, like, other than that, you can just be on track. And so it's not like a complete derailment from your goals. Any questions around that on like the days of the holiday meals? All good? Cool. Well, then before we go, actually I'll do this. The overeating
Ellie,
tips.
I do have a question. If you if you do like overdo it on like a holiday or whatever, what's the best way to like reset your digestive system and get back on track?
Amazing question, John. Scotty. Okay, so it's basically going back to eating like the good, healthy paleo foods, like real food that have limited amounts of trigger things. So no gluten, no grains, like getting right back on track. And also if you are having like a bunch of stomach upset, like you did eat something that was a trigger food and you're having bloating or gas, or you just feel really sick, you can do things like activated charcoal can really help that. Things like aloe vera gel juice. The next day you can fast or do some bone broth, and just like sometimes your digestive system just needs a break. So maybe just drinking, like I said, bone broth with some collagen, having some L-glutamine can help repair the gut. These are all basically gut restoration supplements. Other things could be like marshmallow root, DGL licorice. There's a lot of blends that you can find. There's one from Dr. Amy Myers has a gut blend, and it's like a compilation of all these things. So it's just one supplement. But that can be really helpful. But I think just giving your body a break, eating small meals, eating real food afterwards. And I think that's like the main reason holidays for people are such a struggle. It's not necessarily the day of these big meals. Like that's just one day. So even if you went all out, like that's okay. It's the fact that that ends up usually being a snowball effect. So then the next day you feel like garbage and you're eating the leftovers and there's still pie. So you eat that for the whole week and you feel like crap. So you're not working out. And it's just kind of this slow spiral. And then the mindset of like, well, I'll just wait till January 1st. And so it's knowing if that's a pattern that you've had in the past, that to nip that in the bud and to really plan out the day after a holiday party or the day after a holiday meal that tends to go in the snowball. So like plan out a powerful breakfast, or if it's like a high protein breakfast, maybe put a workout on the calendar that you've already paid for so that you go show up. Throw out any temptations, or throw out or donate or give away the pie or anything that you know you really don't want. And then if you are like hungover after a party and your default is to go get a bunch of greasy food, like plan that out. If you're not going to want to cook, that's okay. Can you go pick up Chipotle bowl? Can you, like Primal Kitchen has these frozen meals that are really good. You could just throw one of those in the microwave or in the stove. So having those kind of backup emergency options. Maybe you get, if you like crave ice cream, I posted this So Delicious dairy-free, no sugar added ice cream, like do that instead. And so really planning on getting right back on the day after so that it doesn't keep going. And any questions on that? Awesome. Well, so just a little bit more on holiday parties. So I know this can be really challenging. Do y'all have challenges when you go to holiday parties of not eating a bunch of stuff? Yeah. So the number one thing that can be really helpful is definitely eat before you go so that you're not starving when you get there, and just like, it's so much harder to make conscious decisions when we're really hungry. So eat something with protein and fat before, whether it's a little meal or a epic bar, or just have stuff on you too. So the next thing is bringing food with you. So there's so many great things you can bring. You can bring siete chips with guacamole. You can bring your own like paleo brownies or anything that you normally would want, you'd like maybe be tempted to at a party. Bring your own version that's a healthier version. I love bringing like bacon wrapped asparagus or like things like the siete chips. So I can make it really easy. And then having kind of like a mental rehearsal, play out the party. So if you're nervous about, they're going to bring out pie and you always eat the pie, but you really don't want to eat the pie, and your grandma's going to put it in your face, but you're not going to want to eat it. So like mentally rehearse what ideally you'd want to do. So if grandma offers me pie, then I will say, oh my gosh, grandma, this looks amazing, but I'm really full. I'll get some later. Or just if you have a food pusher in your life, just saying no thank you is a complete sentence. You can just be like, oh, no thank you, period. No need for explanation. And then if they continue to push, then you can say the things like, I'll get some later, I'm full, or put some in a to-go box and just give it to someone else. Or yeah, just don't, a lot of times it feels like a lot of pressure to have to explain ourselves, and just to remind yourself that you don't have to, and that we teach people how to treat us. So by holding boundaries for yourself and not eating something that you don't want to eat is okay. And realize that a lot of times it's just people wanting to be really hospitable. So you can always also ask them for something else. So sometimes they just want to give you something. So it's like, oh, no, thank you, but could I get a cup of coffee or a vodka drink or something like that? And segue into our next tip for parties is the drinks. So often the holiday drinks are sugary cocktails or a ton of wine and beer. So just being really mindful of those and doing like a vodka soda. You make a Bloody Mary. Don't use Zing Zang because it's full of a bunch of crap. But White Claw, High Noon, like all the spiked seltzers. And if you do wine, you can do like a dry organic wine that can be an up level, and just being conscious of that. And if you know for yourself, I know this was a big trigger for me when I used to go out a lot. I would be fine at the party, but I would get home and binge. And so like noticing that trigger, being able to set myself up at home and either finding something else to do when I got home, like a hot tea or something, or having readily available healthy foods so that I wasn't eating a bunch of crap when I got home. All right. Let me know if you have questions on that. I know we're over time, so I just want to talk about this last topic because I think it's the most important, and then we'll close out. So holidays, one of the biggest things here is managing stress, and that a lot of times the stress is what fuels our cravings and fuels us to reach for things that we know aren't for our best selves, but it's hard to not if we're stressed. So to make this kind of a priority of being able to learn how to have tools to manage stress. The number one, I think, is kind of the foundation, the sleep, sun, which most of you probably already know this, but if you aren't getting, prioritizing your sleep, can you get to bed, start chunking it down like 10 minutes earlier tonight, 10 minutes earlier the next night, and just making sure that you are honoring that. And then if you are struggling with sleep, a lot of times it is food related. So people with sleep apnea, a lot of times if your blood sugar is erratic, you may be waking up in the middle of the night. So getting your food in balance is going to massively impact your sleep. Other things like magnesium deficiency can really impact that. So make sure that if you are struggling, that you maybe try some magnesium, whether it's magnesium glycinate. If you tolerate citrate, that may loosen your bowels. So be aware of that. Or you can do like a magnesium oil and put it on the bottoms of your feet. It can be really helpful for sleep. And when it comes to stress and food, so a craving that comes from not true hunger, food will never satisfy. So I know for myself, I was reaching for food to numb out, for stress, for emotion, for connection. Like I was just using food for everything. And so starting to recognize your own triggers. So what really helped me was asking the question every time I was about to reach for food, am I actually hungry? Why am I reaching for this? And just identifying what's going on for you in that moment. And that's for alcohol, that's for weed, that's for any substance that you're reaching for. Like if you can pause and just check in with yourself, like, hey, what's going on for me right now? And finding compassion. And it doesn't mean depriving yourself of that drink or the sugar. It's like the first step is just the awareness. Like, can I identify my trigger? And then starting to incorporate a non-edible form of nourishment. So something else that you can reach for in those moments to create space. So again, this isn't denying yourself of the chocolate or whatever it might be, but it's saying like, before I go get that, like, for me, it was reach for club soda, and that helped me really create space and a pause. And so then my brain started just creating this new neural pathway of like, I'm stressed, I'm grabbing a club soda. And it was so helpful. And then going further in that was like using breath work. So we don't have that much time, but I wanted to teach all the 5-5-7 breath, but you can practice this on your own. It's a 5-second inhale, a 5-second hold, and a 7-second exhale. And you just repeat that a couple times, ideally 10 times, but even if you do 3 cycles, it can completely get you out of a state of that ego, that the reptilian brain where we get trapped in our thoughts and we're in that primal state, survival state. We can't operate in our best when we're in that state. We can't find creative solutions. It's just like we get such tunnel vision And so to get out of that is finding the breath and realizing when you're in that primal mode and just like tapping in, taking a couple rounds of that breath and getting into the parasympathetic state. That's our restful state. That's our state of creation and problem solving. And then if you are in an anxious state or stress state, other things that can help is just changing your environment. So get outside, go in a different room, go do something else, just completely break that environment from yourself. And then some of you may have tried it, but the Wim Hof breath work is super powerful. I lead a group on Fridays. It's totally free. Come join us at 6:30 a.m. But it's holotropic breath work. So you're really changing your physiology, moving energy that may be stuck in the body. So if you're not into meditation or like slow breathing, this is different. This is like on the other side of the breath work spectrum. It's a fast-paced breath. It can really energize you too. And then, yeah, we'll end with that because I know you have to go into 1:11, so that's a good time. But I appreciate you guys so much for joining for this and your questions. And is there anything y'all want to talk about before we close today?
I don't know about anybody else, but that was awesome. Thank you. I love your presentation. Can I get these, if you're up for it, get these slides so I can attach it to this presentation afterwards?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Ellie. If nobody else has any questions, I'll just do the final wrap up. So we'll leave it. If anybody has questions, ask them now. Yeah, Trav asked, any chance we can get the slides so you can review it? Yeah, I'll get you the slides. Ellie, if you could just shoot them to my email, that'll work. And then when I post this on YouTube, I'll put it in the notes for people to get this, because this is extremely valuable. And I just thank you for putting this together, because seriously, it was impressive.
Yeah. Thank you so much. The holiday tips were really awesome. So thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks, Desmond.
Yeah. Like learning how to like say no to people who like put food in your face is really hard. So that's a good tip.
Yes. Thank you. And it's practice. You can do it.
Yeah.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll send the slides out and connect with me if you need anything at all.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellie. So again, thank you for showing up for our weekly Lunch and Learns. Thank you to Jake, Jasmine, Jeff, John. We got a lot of J's today.
Yeah.
And Travis for showing up in support. Again, we'll be running these every single week. I think I'm going to be talking next week. I'm aligning a couple things on how to essentially use mind mapping in your life to help you reverse engineer and bring any idea or project you have out into the world. And then we're lining up the next couple weeks to have a couple more speakers come on. So one of the things that I started with and I always want to end with is, if you have anybody out there, or if it's yourself, that would love to talk about a topic and help our entire community learn and grow, and you provide that value, we'd love to be the gateway to do that. So please let us know. And then if you have any friends that are just looking to learn something new, please share along that we're going to be doing this every single week, again, for the next year. So appreciate all of you for showing up. Thank you again, Ellie, for this amazing presentation. I'm super excited to run through this again, because I think there was a ton of amazing information in here. And I'm looking forward to shuffling it out to my friends and family. So until next week, y'all, this is CJ